Welcome to APA's weekly webinar. My name is Billy Zadig, Standards and Codes Administrator for APA. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. The webinar recording will be posted to the APA webpage later this afternoon. You'll receive a follow-up email in the next couple of days with a link to the webpage where all webinar recordings are housed, as well as a link to our upcoming webinars. We have webinars planned out through the end of 2021, and many are open for registration. Professional continuing education credits and AIA CLUs are being offered for today's program. If you're an AIA professional requiring a certificate, please send an email to me at Billie, B-I-L-L-I-E, @apa.org, along with your AIA membership number if you have not done so in the past. All attendees are in listen-only mode. Please type your questions in the chat box and they will be answered in the order they are received. If we run out of time and we still have questions, responses will be sent directly to the person asking the question by one of our presenters. At this time, it's my pleasure to turn this over to Mark, Jeff, Candace, and Marcus. Mark, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Leckenhoff. I'm a structural maintenance manager at Michigan State University. I also have Jeff West here. He is a geospatial analyst at MSU and be one of our pilots in our drone program. The timing of this couldn't be any better. We are right at program launch. We've been planning this for about a year. Obviously, the pandemic slowed us down a little bit. However, we finally have a vendor chosen. We're real close on our equipment, and it's getting to be really exciting for us. So next slide, please, Billy. So IPF is responsible for the planning, building, maintaining, energizing, and beautifying the physical campus of MSU. Our services are critical to MSU's mission of teaching, research, and outreach. Some of the statistics of our campus: 24.5 million gross square feet, close to 600 buildings, 124 miles of sidewalks, 28,000 parking spaces, 7 parking garage, and we have just over 2,100 roof sections. So this technology is going to be very helpful for us. Next slide, please. Some opportunities for use. Obviously, on the maintenance side, we envision being able to use this technology in our preventative maintenance program, building envelope, windows, masonry inspections, roof inspections. On the safety side, exhaust stack mapping. Have a lot of fume hoods on campus, so that is a safety consideration that would be useful to our trades folks. And certainly emergencies. We have a river on campus, the Red Cedar River, and we had a over 100-year flood a few years ago, and we used drone technology for that event, hired an outside vendor to come in and fly that, and it really helped us update our flood maps. So it's already benefited us prior to even having a program. On the landscape side, tree health and canopy mapping, road rating surveys, erosion studies. On our planning, design, and construction side, near and dear to Jeff's heart is site surveys. Definitely construction progress can be tracked, marketing, promotional for construction. So those are some of the easy wins I think we can get from this technology, but I'm sure will be many more that will come to light as we get into this. Next slide, please. So implementation. We do have a drone committee on campus. It's made up of various stakeholders across campus: researchers, academic, legal, general counsel, and others. We do have an ordinance that you cannot fly on campus without approval from this committee. So we had to first get buy-in from that committee that, hey, this is a service that IPF wants to provide, not only for our own use, but also for potential uses across campus of maybe a service that additional service we can provide, right? So, but we also felt it was important that, hey, we want an independent third party to help us with experience that can help us write this program. So we've hired a consultant, and they are going to help us tailor this program to our needs, tailor the policies, procedures, safety guidelines to a variety of uses at MSU, create the operation safety and training manuals, the checklists, standard operating procedures, flight planning documents, and risk management documents, obtain the necessary FAA waivers. There's a prep class for the Part 107 exam, ground and flight training for up to 4 pilots. We did also choose, since our campus police is also interested in this technology, we are partnering with them. They will operate under the same program. They will have their equipment and their uses. We'll have our equipment and our uses. But we can also share resources as necessary, especially if we have some larger projects that we want to tackle. So equipment, we just had a demo the other day, Tuesday, on Skydio. It is built in the USA. It's fully autonomous, 6 4K cameras on the equipment with crash detection, obstacle avoidance. So we were very impressed. That's the way we're leaning right now. And like I said, we're pretty excited. So next slide, please. So advantages, as we see it, the technology's here, let's use it, but let's use it safely. The use would improve employee safety. Right now, we have every roof type and slope you can imagine. So our guys now to do some of these inspections, we're on man lifts, we got turf protection, tree protection. There's a lot of coordination that's involved with some of this preventative maintenance. So this technology is definitely more efficient, more accurate, and it should result in real savings to the university. Our uses would be screened through the campus committee, the drone committee, and we'll develop a step-by-step process to initiate, approve, and fly. And then partnership opportunities. Obviously, I mentioned the campus police, but we certainly expect further partnerships with the academic community. Back to you, Billy.
All right, thank you. Our next panelist, our presenter will be Candace Sheehan. And Candace, take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Candace Sheehan, and I'm the Utilities Project Coordinator here at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I am with Facility Services. Facility Services supports the campus and provides a safe, clean, and state-of-the-art environment. Facility Services is composed of utilities, construction, and building services, along with zone maintenance, energy management, and design services. So we are creating a drone program. Just like Mark, we are at the very beginning of this program. We want to perform a variety of functions to serve facility services and the campus as a whole. So along with what Mark said, we would like to perform utilities inspections, landscaping, building, facade, and structural inspections. Currently, there is an academic drone program with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, within the Institute of Geotechnology. They perform drone-based engineering services. And I have reached out to them to share information and hopefully collaborate one day. So it's always a good idea to reach out to different departments within your university and see if they have anything going on with drones so you can work together. So when setting up an unmanned aircraft system or drone program, there are some steps to take in order to fly commercially for the university. Next slide, please. So I'd like to share my process with you today. First of all, how to become an FAA certified remote pilot. So the first thing you should do is go on the FAA site and create a profile with the Integrated Airman Certification and Rating application. So this number that you get with the FAA will follow you throughout this process. You must understand the rules and requirements to become a remote pilot. You must be at least 16 years old. speak, write, and understand English, and be in physical and mental condition to safely fly a drone. Next slide, please. So you must prepare for your aeronautical knowledge test for FAA Part 107, small unmanned aircraft. And the FAA website has study guides for you. We also use a private company that specializes in prepping for the exam. The one we used is dronepilotgroundschool.com. There are other ones like Drone Launch Academy. Google it. There are so many out there. But it provides video courses, test preps, and mock exams. And they also provide an online community as well as group or individual flight training. So the test covers the rules and regulations along with topics like radio communication, airspace map interpretation, load performance, and weather. And you are given 2 hours to complete a 60-question exam. And the exam ranges in price from $109 to $175, depending on the testing center. You can find testing centers on the FAA-approved Knowledge Testing Center area of the website. And again, all of this information can be found on the FAA website, and it will help you get to this point because it is important to have your license in order to fly for the university. Next slide, please. So registration and insurance. When you start flying, you must register all drones with the FAA in the FAA drone zone area. Registration cost is $5 for each unit and is valid for 3 years. And they specify that you must label your drone with the registration number visible on the outside surface. And insurance for drones purchased by the university more than likely will be required. And you find out what department in your university would be responsible for handling insurance. Ours is risk management. And that includes, for the insurance, you must document serial numbers, weight, and cost of each drone. Next slide, please. Okay, and I think Mark touched on some of this too about implementing a policy, designating a coordinator, having some sort of a group that would help with the drone program. At University of Tennessee, the Associate Vice Chancellor of Public Safety and Chief of Police, same person, is the head coordinator for the UAS. And they have approval forms for you to fill out for permission to fly on campus. And as the pilot, we work with a coordinator to notify other parties on campus who will be in or around the flight path. So you also want to familiarize yourself with the airspace on campus. For example, University of Tennessee is 5 miles from an airport and 2 miles from 3 different heliports. So I think it's Class E airspace that we are in right now. And I definitely have to get authorizations to fly. And now you can get there's many apps available for you to get the U.S. airspace authorization. I use Aloft, which is formerly Kitty Hawk. But again, just like anything else, you can Google it and find hundreds out there. But just make sure that they fit your needs and are able to give real-time authorization. And also, if you need any kind of waivers for flight, you can go on the FAA drone zone where you go to register your drones. See, also, in order to get started, you also want to research pre-flight checklists and tailor them to your needs. There are many templates and apps out there, and these checklists not only include reminders for maintenance and safe operation of your drone, it will also set a standard for all pre-flight requirements and authorizations that you will need. Next slide. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Candace. Our next speaker is Marcus Hogue. Marcus, take it away.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Marcus Hogue. I am with the University of Texas at Austin. I also am the CAPA president and co-chair the informatics work group for APA. And today I get the privilege of showcasing what we've done on campus for the last 4 years of flying drones. So the images you're about to get are from our campus. They're actual stuff that I've taken over the time period. When we started looking at the program, we were shocked to find out how many people were actually interested in using drones on campus. These are the groups that we've partnered with over the last several years to fly drones for. Either groups working with research, either flying for specific events for athletics, working with different capital management groups, landscape services. So many different groups on your campus could be interested in using drones or actually currently utilizing them on campus. And that is very important because if we go on the next slide, perception is very important. And right now, people see drones and they have the fear of them. They hear the buzzing. We've had different stuff, and it's changing that perception into something that is a usable. So again, on the left, we've had people when we first started the program saying, hey, you're spying on us. There's a drone in the air. What is going on? Why are you watching me? And then having to educate the group and educate the university and people coming on, they're actually using this for good. And we are able to accomplish this by several news stories of us working with students and other research projects and showcasing on campus. When you see a drone in the air, you don't have to be afraid of it. It is actually being put to use to help save the university time, money, and manpower. So on the next slide we go to, we're going to show you how we utilize them on campus. Again, you've heard from Candace and Mark different ways that they have plans to go for it. We do some of these, but these are some outside areas and aspects that we tackle right now. I'm going to go through a few of these and show you slides on campus and show you the reason why you may want to consider that for this effort. Go ahead and go on the next one. So roof inspections. Here are some sample thermal images, an RGB regular image of the rooftop. But before I go into more detail on the roof inspection, I want to explain something. Before, we had an individual that would literally walk up on every rooftop on the university campus and physically inspect it. This had been done for many, many years. Well, recently, about 4 to 5 years ago, this individual was climbing up a ladder and fell. When he fell, he actually broke 3 of his ribs during that for doing an inspection. It cost the university $93,000 in medical bills. This has started giving the viewpoint of, do we actually need to send someone up on top of every single roof to inspect stuff? So now we're going through capturing images using thermal. So on the left side, you see a regular image on the top and the thermal down below, pinpointing areas that could have water penetration. Now, we always call them anomalies because until someone gets up on the rooftop and actually physically inspects what is going on, all we see is a difference in temperature on the roof membrane. Now, again, there are different thermal classes you can take outside that will give you different levels for analysis. But most of the images that we've received on campus, very clear as day to see the issue. As you again, on the left side, you can see water's penetrating. So what we look for as the sun sets, water that has been accumulated underneath the membrane is going to keep its temperature. It's going to hold on to that, where everything else is going to cool down during this shade where you don't have direct sunlight. So we are looking for warmer areas around cooler to see where that penetration is, find that moisture level. But during this process of just looking at roofs, we actually found more issues with other stuff that we didn't anticipate. On the image on the right, you see a unit, a piece of equipment on top. You see a lot of red around it. That piece of equipment is emitting a lot more heat than anywhere else in any other piece of equipment on that rooftop. So something is going wrong with that piece of equipment, where if you just had someone going up on top of a roof inspecting for leaks, you never would have found that issue. So when you consider the rooftop, also look at pieces of equipment and other stuff going on. So on the next slide, you will see water penetration, again, breaking the seal on the left. Someone had not done a good enough seal as the building material connected into a skylight. And over the time, you see where water is definitely penetrating around it, cause an issue. Now, before, what we would do is we would wait till we get reports of people complaining of water drooping from the roof, and then we'd go up and take a look at it. Again, that was great from the past when we didn't have this new capability. Now we can keep track, and our goal is to fly every rooftop every 3 years to collect these images. On the next image you see a cooling tower. We're watching the different exchanges and heat exchanges to the cooling tower. And another thing down below is we have an AC unit on top. That is a hose that has a leak on top of it. Again, a person on the ground would never notice that leak going on, but a drone is quickly able to see an issue that is easy able to fix and repair. Keep an eye on things that are going on the rooftop and tracking it. Now, as we all know, when we're dealing with major storms and you're dealing with insurance, everybody or insurance agencies a lot of times like to say, how do we know that is not a pre-existing condition? And if you don't have your rooftops mapped out and have that original data, you don't have that information to proceed forward to showcase that that hailstorm, that tornado in the area actually did as much damage, breaking the roof frame, lifting it up, causing water penetration without previous data. I know several other universities have done this. I've heard the University of in Houston that saved an extra $20 million doing a thermal inspection and then comparing it after a hurricane. These same situations can occur on your campus, and if you don't have that data to begin with, how do you have that argument to move forward? Where now drones are easily able to capture that information, document it, and store it as you move forward. Now we use a Zenmuse XT 640. We do a higher definition of thermal so we can collect more, and we found it to be clearer images. The drone itself is fairly cheap, but the camera for the thermal was around $14,000. Not a cheap investment, but think about it. That individual that fell off the roof, we spent $93,000 in medical bills. That could easily cover the entire drone program that we had in place. Not alone the damage that is done to him and the pain and suffering. We're now, don't send someone else up on the rooftop unless you know there is an issue going on for at least someone to take a look at. Now, as we proceed to the next slide, there's different ways to start to view this information. Here's a drone image of a property. And there are programs out now where you can actually look at what a new piece of building will look like on the property before it's actually installed. Now, I know we see a lot of drawings and people showcases, this is what it could be. But imagine walking into a VP or a dean of the new school and showing him exactly what that drone is going to look like, or excuse me, what that new building is going to look like on that property. Now, we have another set of video that will be sent out in an email to all the attendees. That will have a lot more construction images and video into it, showing different ways that we do demolition of buildings. We do progress updates of individual shots. So we'll do over each week, we'll take shots that were used in project meetings. We also had the ability to do an aerial 360 image. Why that's so important is you had the ability during your meeting to literally move the camera around your construction site and zoom in on areas and have that discussion. We found that to be very important, and they actually start moving away from progress updates of individual images, and now they seem to want to just stick with the 360 because they can look at different areas and zoom in and have that flexibility during their project meetings. But again, we all know people love the pictures, deans love to have this on the wall. Well, those can all be done inside without the need of a helicopter, without the need of a lift. And most of the times capturing these images takes 20 minutes for a project site, if that. It takes me more time to do my pre-checklist than it does to fly the site and to capture those images. So as we look into the next one, you saw the previous Mark mention landscape, and the ways we are utilizing this on landscape is we're taking it to the next level. Of course, you can take a look at it and you can watch different issues that are going on with the landscape itself. You can see damage done from tailgating, We've used this a lot in getting more funds back from our athletic department due to tailgaters' intents for their events to fix the issues that are going on. But we found also big is the tree health. Right now, our campus has a tree inventory worth around $25 million. We use a special camera called NDVI, Normalized Differential Vegetative Index, and we can monitor tree health throughout the campus. That way, before you start noticing an issue with the tree with the physical eye, this drone camera is able to pick it up. We also utilize this on construction sites where we will fly a site and inspect the trees before they demo and start building a building. Because we all know when a project's going up and there are trees and it starts struggling issues, contractors a lot of times will say it was a pre-existing condition. It wasn't us that did it. Well, now we can actually monitor that tree and see what is going on beforehand and show, look at the change. Here's the delta in the tree foliage. This is starting to go downhill, and before it craters and dies, you're actually able to treat it and start monitoring those trends in it. And again, another one we're looking at, we've got a few articles and news stories, if you Google us, about irrigation management, where we were able to reduce water usage and monitor it from the air before people notice. So grass can be stressed out to a level. Well, that stress value can be seen in this camera, but we can see it before it becomes noticeable by the visible eye, and that is very important. We don't want to overwater a landscape and just always have it green. There's a level of green people can see and not notice a difference, and use that delta in savings. We've got several test sites we've been practicing over the years, and I believe we've got a white paper out on that aspect. Now, as we go into the next one, we're going to discuss some of the class projects. So in our department, not only do we fly for the campus for facilities, but we're also teaming up with different academic groups. And we'll go in more detail later on why that is so important. So as I mentioned, the water conservation project up at the top left is the one for using the drone. The student actually had the concept in high school and won an award where his group went to Washington, D.C. to showcase it. But it was all hypothetical. When he came to campus, he found out that we did drones and met with me, and we turned his hypothetical award-winning into an actual project for research on campus. Why that's so important is he was able to get funding from other groups to pay for our drone and pay for our special camera that we now use for the entire campus tree inventory and landscape management. Now, we also do different things, pictures on the school, or the picture to your right, the students up front. That is the School of Nursing, the first class to graduate. So these images took us about 15 minutes to come and capture. It was cheaper for them to hire out, but it's that collaboration as we are the go-to group on campus if you have drone images. Now on the bottom left, working and showcasing what we're doing, getting it out to other groups. If we're doing stuff on campus, we want other people to know. That helps with funding, that helps when budget cuts come. They're less likely to cut a group that is getting media attention. So something to keep in mind. And again, working with the students on the group 3, training them, seeing how they're utilizing it in their different classes and moving forward with those. Because we want to partner with the students on their research moving forward. Now on the next slide, these are our 2 types in our department. Now we utilize other drones outside of this. The Inspire 1 version 2 is an older version drone. It is now no longer being manufactured, but excuse me, the reason we started with that one is the flexibility of changing cameras out on it. We had the ability to fly with the regular camera. We have the ability to fly with NDVI and with thermal. So when you're looking at a drone, consider the flexibility on the camera payload. The Phantom 4 Pro on the right is great for construction, but the problem is you cannot change out that camera lens. Whatever you purchase with that Phantom 4 Pro is what you have on it. Now, there are other systems out there that you can have attached to it that will connect up to the back of the drone. You can do thermal, you can do NDVI, but that's an extra addition that you have with it. And if it's not done properly, can unlevel your drone and cause issues with it. Now, we also fly an M600 Pro, but that was mainly for academic. We fly a hyperspectral camera doing research on different plant types. We're looking at getting an M300 and moving up, but listening to Mark talk about the Skydio, I may take a look at that one before investing into another DJI. just because of the regulations that happened last few years over crackdown on using foreign drones on campus due to privacy concerns and safety concerns. We did have an issue when we first started flying these drones on campus because they are DJI drones. Our group on security studied what information was being sent back to China and found out small size packets of data are being sent back, but they weren't large enough to show an actual image. They're very small in size, but information was being sent back. It was encrypted, so we were not knowing of what was being done. In the future, we may look at other options, but currently this is what we're utilizing on campus. So as you go to the next slide, you've heard about rules and regulations from other groups from the previous presenters. One thing to take a look at is a lot of stuff has recently changed this year. If you're going to renew your license, there is no longer a cost, or excuse me, your certification, there's no longer a cost. It is free online. Not only that, but you had the ability to be able to fly at night with no longer needing a waiver. Now, if you have special stuff on your drone, anti-collision lights, and in certain airspaces, you're able to fly without having that waiver, and that is very important. That waiver normally took 3 to 6 months to obtain from the FAA. Now a lot of these sites no longer need it, as well as other rules and regulations that are in place. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the 400 feet. Most drone operators that have gone through the class, this is well put onto you. You're knowledgeable on it, but that also includes over a building. So if you have a building that's 700 feet high, you can fly a drone 400 feet above that. One issue that I find most people have, though, when flying on campus is we will launch from the ground. So eyesight, line of sight of your drone, you always have to have that. In order to overcome this, a lot of times we will fly from the rooftop of a building so we can always keep an eye on the drone and have easier access. We found that to be very useful at nighttime flights because the flashing lights were able to have more control and observe issues with that. If you do that, keep in mind that when you are having your battery go low, and if it gets too low to come back to you, it will land straight down. And we've had issues before. We've had to have someone go out and make sure no one's in the area as the drone drops down. You can set those values on your drone when it drops below a certain percentage that it won't just land. You can extend it where it will alert you. Those are very important to have in mind as you move forward in those upkeep. Now, as we go through and talk on the next slide, these are potential issues that I've gone through. You don't have to take a picture of this. APA is going to be releasing, it's either an article or in the next magazine where I have this in there for it. But I'm going to give examples of what we've come across campus and over the years. Now, the first one, everybody laughs, birds. Now, birds of prey, a lot of them see a smaller size drone as a target. And I've had several. We have falcons on campus. We have a specific falcon called UT Girl. She has more friends on Facebook than I do. So we have to take extra caution. And if we fly around the main building where her nest is at the top, if she has eggs in there, she will come after my drone. So I've learned I have to schedule certain times of year to fly around the main building just because I don't want to take a chance of injuring the bird as we fly it around. But take into account if you have eagles, eagles will quickly take your drone out of the air. You can Google and see a lot of videos of those. But also another thing people don't take into account is pigeons. A lot of times your drone could spook a group of pigeons, and if they're not paying attention where they can fly into your drone. So always keep an eye on birds in your area. Blackbirds are another big issue during certain times of year in Texas. They will take out your drone, and birds that are prey will go after it. Now the next one, as we all know, if you have your license, you are not to fly over anybody. So we have issues though on campus, as we all do with students walk around looking at their phones and not looking up in the air. We actually have individuals that are out there keeping areas clear. That way, if someone decides to come up and walk into it, they will know, okay, do not proceed in this area. Now, 99% of the time, that drone stays in the air and does its mission. But you always have to prepare for that 1%. Because I can guarantee you, if that drone falls out of the air and hits a student or a person on your campus, you are going to make national news. And you don't want to be that university making national news because they got hit in the head with the drone. So to overcome that, just simply have part of the staff or have your police department come out and coordinate areas off of flights. Now, one way I work around a lot of issues with students is I do a lot of flights during holidays. So say we have Memorial Day off. Everybody's gone on campus. I a lot of times will get out and fly during that time just due to the lack of foot traffic on the campus. Christmas time, holiday seasons, great time to capture a lot of image if you're trying to cover a large area in a space. Also consider the weekends of flying just due to lack of people on it. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk with privacy. As you saw in that previous image way back about all those drones flying over the people, when you start flying a drone close to a dormitory, you will get calls of people accusing of a drone looking through the window, which I can understand. A student sees a drone flying out the window, their first thought is, hey, someone is spying on me, because that is the current perception of when you see a drone in the air, that it's watching me. When most of the time we're inspecting the facade, we're inspecting the roof, we're taking other images that may not pertain to it. So when you come and you deal with dormitories on campus, we'll definitely let everyone know in that dormitory a flight is going on, but we try to plan for it when no one's in that dormitory, either between class change and semesters, summertime, winter break. We try to plan times when we don't have students in it. We found that to be a lot less stressful, because even when you alert students, most of them don't read their emails in that regards, or see something in facilities and toss it and don't pay attention to it. We can even have signs up into it. And even with signs, a lot of them start feeling that they're unsafe, that we are still going to see on them. So it's just easier that we don't fly when students are there. Now, this next one is a big one. There's been several crashes from other companies due to this feature. So most drones have the ability that's called return to home. It's a button that you push and your drone comes back to where it took off at. But the issue they have is they don't take into account what could be between them and the drone. So if it doesn't go high enough, it could collide with buildings, antennas, trees, and other issues. So make sure your return to home is going to come and be high enough to cross over. But another thing to keep in mind is if you have higher wind that day, that your return to home isn't too high, where you may be caught in a wind current and your drone takes off in another direction. You're not able to get it back. Things to keep in mind with the return to home, very important. Most of them are set about 60, 70 feet up in the air to return back. We're working on campus. We have several buildings taller than that, and a lot of them could collide into the side of the building as it's coming back. Now, our next issue, drones, several drones in the same area. We have a very active drone population in Austin. We have a drone Facebook group for the city of Austin with over 3,000 people, and people love gathering iconic locations. And our football stadium and our main tower are those iconic places that they try to capture. Now, we do have rules and regulations. You're not able to lift off or land on the campus without written approval, but we don't control the airspace over UT. That is the FAA's regulations. So a lot of people will launch from outside the campus and fly into the campus and capture those images. Now, if I'm flying a pattern and I don't pay attention and see a smaller size drone coming through, there is a chance of collision. And we also have outside vendors flying different sites on there. Not only are we managing it, but others are doing the same. So coordinating with those efforts, we have a department in our environmental health and safety that manages all approved drone flights. So we've got a GIS map that we have created, so we know what areas and who's flying where. That is very important, so that way you don't have collision. But also keep in mind, if you have other groups or commercial entities flying the drone on the campus, do you really need to refly those areas, or can you utilize those images? Why redo work that has already been done by someone else? So keep that in mind if you're using others. And equipment failure. I've had this on one of my very first drones. Flew the drone up in the air, went about 100 feet, and then the new battery in it shorted out. It had a bad battery, even though it was brand new. It fell out of the air from 100 feet and hit the concrete and shattered. Now, again, it was covered by warranty, but I learned from that lesson. Any new drone with new batteries, as I go at least 15 to 20 minutes of a low altitude, 4 or 5 feet, where I'm monitoring and watching it, letting it get through a cycle, That way I know that there's no issues going on before I put that over students, before I put it over UT facilities and buildings. We found that to be a major precaution to take just because of the issues that I've had in the past. I'm over cautious with it. I'd rather test it before we test it out underneath people or over people. Now, as we go on the next slide, as I mentioned, we have outsourcing and in-house flights. This is something you may want to consider. You may not want to go and purchase your own drone. You may want to use outsourcing, but you need to know an idea on pricing. So on our campus, our UAV costs, our Phantom 4 Pro is around $15,000. Our Inspire with the NDVI and other setups and M600P is around $8,000. The cameras are what could be expensive. That is normally the most expensive part of a drone. The better quality camera, the more you're going to cost. If you look at the LiDAR amount, that is a sticker shock. At least about $150,000 for the Phoenix LiDAR. That requires about an M210 or an M300 or an M600 to fly on, so a bigger size drone. But very useful. So on those, if you don't use the LiDAR a lot, you may want to consider outsourcing that aspect. I know on our campus, we got quoted around $40,000 for a LiDAR scanning the entire campus. Much cheaper than us going out and purchasing a LiDAR camera when we're only going to use every few years on campus. Another aspect to take into account is your software. Now, we use Pix4D. We love the functionality to it. They do have an educational discount, but I found out if you're in facilities, you don't get that educational discount. That is for academia, not for us. So it's about $5,000 for a one-time fee. Now, I've worked with student groups beforehand where we used it for their classes. It's about $300 a semester. So if you team up and work with academia, you might have some flexibility on that, on the cost. But if you're looking for outsourcing and bringing other people in, you've got about $500 an hour for thermal. Again, video is about $175, and then editing is another cost most people don't take into account. But one thing to consider when you're looking at outsourcing is insurance requirements. One reason it's so hard for people to fly on campus is we require a $5 million insurance policy for flying a drone on the campus, which about 75% of drone pilots do not have. Most of them cover $1 million to $2 million, but not $5 million. So when you're looking at outsourcing, consider that. How hard is it for them to get approval on the campus to fly? It might be easier to do it internal. So at UT, for us to bring an outside contractor in to fly, it's normally about 3 to 5 months approval process, where I have a 24-hour turnaround where I can give notification and fly tomorrow. So depending on the goal, depends on how we use it, how we move to the next level. Very important in that aspect. If you need something done quick, if you have an internal group, you're more likely to get over that and get it accomplished quicker. Now, again, also you need a pilot. So I've had other people ask me, hey, we're going to have a pilot set up. This is perfect. We'll assign him a new role. Well, we found out weather plays a major factor in flights. High winds, anything over 15, 20 mile an hour, you don't want your drone in the air. Now, it may be 10 mile an hour wind down below on the surface where you're walking, but up in the air is going to be much higher speed of wind. And there's different apps you can get a look at to let you know to take that into account. And also rain or high and cold temperatures. So if you have someone that's specific just as a drone pilot, you need to make sure they have other tasks, either the editing or they're using other equipment to scan, because there's a good chance a portion of their day, week, month may not have anything for them to scan because the weather's not working with them. Now, if you're looking at outsourcing, there's several companies. If you Google in your area, several will pop up. There's a lot of places that will handle small size, large size. Depends on where you're at in your budget. Definitely look around and compare. There's several individuals out there. There's also thermal classes people can take, UAS thermal level 1. So if you're considering someone flying the rooftops, check to see if they have that. It means they have more experience and training in that manner and can separate them from other people. Now, on the next one that we have slide coming up is academia. We found this to be extremely beneficial on the campus. Why for us to go out and purchase drones when other academic groups are utilizing them and it sits in someone's office, for 90% of the time? So I mentioned LiDAR. So the LiDAR camera, we had a professor purchase with the drone $180,000. We found out it sits in his office 90% of the time again. It's only flown 10%. So instead of us paying almost $40,000 for an outside entity to fly it, or us spending $150,000 for the camera, we are working with their group on having the flight, and all they want is the data off of it. So we don't have to purchase the equipment. We don't even have to fly it. They're going to fly it themselves, yet we get to collect all that information. We have a School of Architecture on campus that has 3 drones that they're flying and capturing other images, and we are partnering with them. If they're capturing images over specific buildings on campus, why have us go out and recapture those images? As long as they're following our protocol, which we give them our SOP, standard operating procedure, and they capture it in our manner, it works as a win-win. We get the data set in, we don't spend the time and effort doing the flight, and we have now the ability to move forward with it, and the students have something to go on their resume to showcase to move forward. But we're also finding out groups are getting money from the government for research. As I mentioned before, we have a project I'm flying for one of our professors who's got it with the Department of Energy, where we're flying a switchgrass, a type of grass to look at the root system. Well, he was able to purchase a $75,000 drone with camera system. Well, he didn't have a pilot at the time. So I fly the drone, and in 2 years, his research is done. He no longer needs a camera. He no longer needs a drone. So when that's over with, that drone is going to come back to our department to be able to utilize. Well, the Department of Aerospace Engineering has now received a $3.6 million funds to study drones. What are they going to do with those drones when they're done? Instead of them sending them off to surplus, if they're drones that we can utilize, we can now bring them into our group. Or we can have them fund our drones and we work together in tandem. And then the last one, College of Natural Sciences, looking at $7.5 million of using autonomous with the drones. The money is out there in other groups. If you're able to partner up with these different groups, why spend the money to buy a drone that's sitting in someone's office 90% of the time? So look at your different groups on campus and find ways to partner up with them. You'd be surprised how many professors and associate professors are excited about flying on campus instead of having to travel to off-site locations, and then be able to use that information and be able to move forward with. Opening up those lines of collaboration, or getting rid of your silos. If you're collecting information, why not share that with the School of Architecture, and they can use that in the classes, creating 3D models, overviewing the buildings, maybe finding issues where you capture the image and they go through and analyze. I have a student group working right now on a concept of going through thermal images and be able to flag thermal images that we need to come back to look at. So instead of me analyzing 1,000 thermal images, they're building software to let me know you need to go look at these 25 to see if there's an issue with it. Reducing my time, but that is a class project that they're able to move forward with and get real world knowledge and experience. What's also great about that is that they can use that for rooftops and finding issues. That can now be moved over to search and rescue of finding people that are trapped. As we've heard the tragedy that happened this morning in Miami with the collapse, they're going to be using drones with thermal imaging looking for missing people. Imagine having that software in place where that will help them during that research. So it works for me on my rooftops and getting those images, but it has big world impact and connection. And it all starts with each one of us. Now, if you've seen my presentations before, you always know I like to look in the future, 5 and 10 years. And my next mindset is the potential. So right now we are looking at creating 3D printings from our buildings. So you use the drone as you're flying around building envelopes, capturing that image and printing 3D examples of it. Giving those 3D little bitty prints to be able to put on the dean's desk. Maybe the project manager that completed that project, your vice president or president. Now, I know it sounds something small, but again, if you're in front of those VPs and president, giving them small tokens, and when budget time comes, you are less likely to be on the chopping block because you're giving something over that they can use. I know we can all imagine our president with all the buildings that were built underneath him on his desk, and him being proud of that effort and pushing those forward. But also we're looking at delivery. I mean, if Domino's can deliver pizza out to your house, why can't you deliver equipment and materials to someone out in the field instead of them driving back to the office and collect it? Think about the time and savings on that. Now, again, it's small ones, but how many times does someone get out in the field and forget a tool, a small bolt, a bag of bolts, something light? Well, if Amazon can send deliveries, why not? Let's do the same in that direction. Getting that information and getting it out into the field and cutting that travel time back and forth. On the UT campus, it's an average of 30 minutes to leave from main campus, getting back over to the materials room and back on campus. That's about 30 minutes to 45 minutes lost. And again, the last one I joke about, but imagine you have a meeting out in the field. You need coffee. We all need coffee to work. You know, having drones bring different stuff out there, different things to do in place. Tools that are already being used by commercial entities. Why not bring them in and use them at the university? And again, as we work on these projects moving forward, UT has a motto: what starts here changes the world. So anything that we're using and capturing, we are providing to anyone that takes interest. If you're starting a program or into a program, feel free to contact us. We would love to share what we're doing, and we'd love to hear from what you all are doing as well. That's the best thing I love about APA is the collaboration. We're all in this together. We're not competitors. Let's work together as we move through and to the next levels on things. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. We're now going to get into some questions that we have, and the questions are coming in. So one of the first questions for our panel: what are the costs of the drones you have purchased for plan to purchase?
I can let you start, Marcus.
So the ones we've purchased on campus is our Phantom 4 Pro, ran about $1,500, and then our Inspire and our M600P is around $8,000. But I'm very curious, Mark, on yours, because it's the next one I'm looking at.
I'll let Jeff answer this one.
Yeah, so we're looking at the Skydio X2E, and that includes the sensors on it, and that's about $14,500. Or they have their more or lesser version, their Skydio 2, which is about $3,100. And again, the sensors are included in that.
Like Marcus mentioned, the cost is in the cameras. So if you can switch out to different cameras, it just depends, you know, LiDAR versus thermal. And then there's much like camera technology, you know, the quality, the higher you want to go in quality, the more the cost goes up.
Yes, and we had the DJI Matrice 200 with the infrared capabilities. It was around, I believe it was $13,000 with the camera and the drone. And we also just have a small DJI Spark for practice or just very small picture taking.
Okay, well, thank you. Next question for the panel. How did you decide to implement your own drone program versus leveraging the resources of a third party?
I'll answer. So for Michigan State, it was for me, it was just about liability. We wanted to use a neutral third party just to have that added layer, and it was also experience. The vendor we're going with has done universities, municipalities, fire and rescue, police. So they have a broad range of experience, have a lot of knowledge on the FAA waivers and which ones we may need. And they're using the right buzzwords as far as making sure that they're including all the stakeholders from our campus, especially the drone committee on so we're kind of jointly putting this program together, all of which was important to us. And we did, because of our purchasing rules, you know, we did go out to bid. We had several qualified vendors bid, and we did choose a vendor. So that's kind of where we're at Michigan State.
At UT, the concept actually developed in 2014 at an APA annual conference, sitting at a table with project managers and my director. We started the process because there weren't many vendors out at that time. Most of the vendors that were connecting with the university is utilizing helicopters for rooftops and other stuff coming through. So we started building this at the same time the drone industry really took off for other areas. And then now we do more of a hybrid. We let certain projects, if they've got the funding, move forward with their own, and then other areas we fill in.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that too. At Michigan State, it was having drones flying in the air has always been considered taboo. The MSU police had a zero tolerance for drones. So getting a private vendor to come in and do a service for us was very challenging. We've had very few flights done on campus. So we decided to just do the program ourselves.
That's more
Okay,
of
thank
the,
you. Go ahead, Candace.
I was just saying that's more the direction we were going in as well. It's been a few years in the making, but we decided that it would be more cost effective to do it in-house.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, it's directed at Marcus, but Mark, Jeff, Candace, feel free to jump in at any time. How many licensed pilots do you have? Are you consistently flying drones to cover all of these projects?
So right now we have 2 licensed pilots in my department. We've got a few students with their own license. We fly occasionally depending on the need out there. We found a lot of the projects have been in place for a while, so they've already had contracts with vendors that are flying for large size construction, which hopefully when that project's over with, the next one, we will be in that contract to fly it instead of them an outside vendor. We try to fly once or twice a week, depending on the weather and depending on our goals and what we're trying to capture.
At Michigan State, we are planning on 2 pilots in our facilities department. We're going to ease into it with 1. So Jeff's going to get his license, and then we'll kind of see how the demand goes. But we're fully planned to add a second pilot as this thing matures. And I believe our campus police department is planning on 2 pilots as well. So.
Currently, I'm the only licensed pilot in the program, and I'm hoping that we can get a few more.
Okay, thank you. A next question for our panel. Can you use a drone to accurately measure a roof square footage?
It's easy. The answer is yes.
Yes, there are attachments in RTK that allows you to get within a centimeter accuracy of a rooftop.
Okay. And our next question is, what department are you putting, I'm taking liberty here, the drones for program governance?
Our safety group, environmental health and safety, is overall in charge of monitoring and maintaining the drone flights on campus. They don't complete the work, but they're the ones overseeing the approval process. So environmental health and safety, and they're under our safety department.
Our governance will be the drone committee at Michigan State. I think I had mentioned that before. So all of our uses for our drone will have to go through that committee and be approved.
And I spoke on that with the university police department, their chief of police, and I think there's someone else, and I'm sorry I don't have the information. They are part of the organization which they govern all of the drone usage on our campus.
Okay. Our next question is, and it's probably for Marcus, but here again, Mark, Jeff, Candace, jump in if you can. How long does it take to print a 3D building the size of the one in the image?
So it depends on the size of your printer. Printed like that, we typically put it in and come back the next day. It could be 3 to 6 hours in our printers. And also depends on what type of resin you use for the printing. If you want to go cheap or it's thinner, you use a different type of resin. If you want it stronger, we're looking at some 3D metal printing as well. And looking at that as an option for more long-term for donors that cough up $50 million, give them a metal one instead of giving them a piece of plastic.
Okay. And our next request is, please relate experience using drones in buildings to verify new construction or for promotional fly-throughs.
So the demonstration we just saw with the Skydio is fully autonomous and can fly indoors without GPS. We don't have a plan to use it indoors yet, but we now see the possibility.
When we receive a new roof on campus, we will fly it for commissioning purposes. We've had a new roof that was installed that was leaking, and we use the drone to find an issue. We'll also fly window seals, looking for leaks in a window sill in a new building. There are a few that you can fly inside the building. There's some confined space to get up inside piping and take a look at. We haven't purchased one of those units, as the new ones are about $41,000 and out of our current price range. But if you go on the UT site and look at the promo videos, I know athletics and any new building, we're using the drone flights to give a image of the building for those promos and online.
Okay, thank you. And can you give some advice on finding the best drone for your campus?
I would say Mark and Jeff are doing a great job at it, testing out the different drones. The first thing I would recommend is doing a matrix. What are you wanting to capture? Are you wanting to capture thermal, regular image? If you're wanting to capture regular image, what detail level, megapixel camera do you want on that drone? If you want to do NDVI or other specialty cameras, will it be able to handle it? Do you want special accuracy and positioning? Do you need RTK for that high level of definition for construction sites? So writing down what you're wanting with the goal and then comparing it with what budget you have coming out and what you can spend towards it.
Okay, thank you. Well, that is taking care of all the questions that we have from our audience. Is there any parting wisdom that you would like to give to our attendees today?
I recommend finding off-site places to practice with your team before you start flying on campus. I know a lot of people will get a new drone and start utilizing it on your campus. Find a satellite location to practice on an open field. That way people start getting used to it and comfortable before you put that underneath people or over people, that something can happen.
I agree. Marcus, do you know of a good time frame? Like how many hours you think is acceptable to have some flight experience before flying on campus?
We require a minimum of 50 hours for any new pilot. We've got a satellite location that they can capture and gather that image on in time, but we want 50 hours. Again, we are underneath the mindset if that drone falls and hurts someone, that's a travesty, insurance, lawsuit, but also we don't want to make national news because of that. So minimum 50 hours with the specific drone they will be flying before they can go on main campus.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, I had a question come in from someone that says, are there any RF interference issues for the building operations?
So yes, I've come across several of those. We've got a building of communication. We have a naval research area that tests signals and sending information out over a long distance. If I don't pay attention to where I'm flying at and what antennas on top of the roof, we will have issues with communication. A lot of times it will send my drone into come and land, return to home. For those, I just plan out accordingly and I mark it on a map. So that way I know when I come back into the future to keep an eye on it. We also have an area that is close to the nuclear facility that is blacking out any of my signals. So I've noticed that as well, where I stay away from it because everything is being jammed. And when you have someone of high profile in politics, vice president, president, they will shut down all signals in the area. So if you do have anything major going on campus, do not fly that day and be prepared a week before, as they will have security in place as they start blocking certain things in place.
Okay, well, thank you. And as we go to close, I'd like to thank our panelists, Marcus, Mark, Jeff, Candace. Thank you so much for taking the time to put this information together. I will also include in the follow-up email your email address and how to get a hold of you. So as we close, and thank you everyone, we have a couple of things coming up at APA. We have our virtual summit that's now available. The educational sessions are on the website. We have the Leadership Academy Supervisors Toolkit. These are virtual right now, but they will be going, you can have on-campus learning coming up soon. And as always, we have an app for that. So to keep in touch with everything that's going on at APA and your group, please download our APA 365 app. Again, as always, thank you for your time. Be safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful 4th of July. Goodbye now.